If you've been too busy to play with your cat this week, you're probably thinking it's not that big of a deal, right? They have toys. They sleep most of the day anyway. You'll make up for it this weekend. And honestly, life gets hectic. We all understand that. But here's the question nobody's asking. What's actually happening inside your cat's brain and body during those 7 days of missed play? Because it's not just boredom. It's not just disappointment. The changes start within 48 hours. And by day 7, your cat isn't quite the same animal they were when the week started. Most of these changes are invisible to you, happening beneath the surface in ways you won't notice until they've already become problems. And the scariest part? Some of them don't reverse automatically when you finally pick up that toy again. Let me be clear. This isn't about shaming busy cat owners. This is about understanding that play isn't optional enrichment for cats. It's a biological necessity, like food and water, just on a different timeline. And what happens when it disappears, even briefly, is more serious than almost anyone realizes. Let's start with what happens in the first 48 hours, and why it sets off a cascade you can't stop. Did you know that every single day, your cat's brain generates a powerful biological need to complete something called the predatory sequence? Here's what that means. In the wild, cats hunt multiple times per day. Not because they're always hungry, but because the hunt itself is a neurological need. The sequence goes stalk, chase, pounce, catch, kill, eat. That sequence releases specific neurotransmitters: dopamine during the hunt, serotonin after the kill. It's a complete neurological cycle that regulates your cat's entire nervous system. And here's the problem. Your indoor cat has the exact same drive as a wild cat, but zero natural outlets. That's where play comes in. When you drag a feather wand and let your cat stalk, chase, and pounce on it, you're not just entertaining them. You're completing a biological circuit that their brain desperately needs to close. Research published in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior on feline enrichment found that cats deprived of predatory play show measurable increases in stress hormones within just a few days. Their bodies are generating this intense drive to hunt, but there's nowhere for that energy to go. It's like revving a car engine in neutral for hours. The system isn't designed for that. So what happens to all that pent-up predatory energy? It doesn't just disappear. Within 48 to 72 hours, you start seeing what behaviorists call redirected hunting behavior. Your cat starts stalking your ankles, attacking your hands under blankets, ambushing you from around corners. You think they're being aggressive or mean, but what they're actually doing is desperately trying to complete the neurological cycle their brain is screaming for. And here's the part most owners miss. Punishment makes this worse, not better. Yelling at your cat or spraying them when they attack your feet doesn't stop the behavior. It just adds stress on top of an already frustrated nervous system. The fix isn't discipline. It's giving them what their brain actually needs. Even just 10 minutes of structured play with a wand toy, where your cat gets to complete the full sequence ending with a catch, can reset that cycle. But skip it for a week? That frustrated energy compounds daily. Let's talk about something most cat owners have never considered. What happens to your cat's physical body when they go from daily play to 7 days of nothing? Because cats aren't just lounging peacefully. Their bodies are changing. First, there's the muscle loss. Cats are obligate carnivores with bodies designed for explosive bursts of activity. Their muscle composition is built for sprinting, jumping, and pouncing. But here's the thing about muscle tissue: use it or lose it applies to cats even faster than it does to humans. A study on feline muscle physiology found that indoor cats without regular vigorous activity can lose measurable muscle mass within just 2 weeks. 1 week of skipped play doesn't sound like much, but it's halfway there. And the muscles they lose first? The powerful hind leg muscles used for jumping and the core muscles used for climbing. These are exactly the muscles that keep older cats mobile and independent. But the bigger issue is metabolic. When cats don't play, they don't burn calories, obviously. But it's worse than simple math. Without the activity that stimulates their metabolism, their bodies start shifting into a lower energy state. They become more sedentary not because they're choosing rest, but because their metabolism is slowing to match their activity level. And here's where it gets dangerous. Even if your cat eats the exact same amount, that metabolic slowdown means more calories are stored as fat. Research shows that just 1 week of reduced activity can measurably alter insulin sensitivity in cats, especially those already predisposed to weight issues. You're not seeing obesity yet, but you're laying the metabolic groundwork for diabetes. And once that pattern sets in, it becomes self-reinforcing. Lower activity leads to weight gain, which makes activity harder, which leads to more weight gain. 1 week can be the difference between maintaining healthy weight and starting a slide toward obesity that takes months to reverse. The fix is consistency. Daily play, even just 10 to 15 minutes, keeps the metabolism active and the muscles engaged. Miss a week, and you're not just pausing progress. You're actively moving backward. Here's a question you probably haven't connected to skipped playtime. Has your cat been waking you up at 3 a.m. this week? Zooming around the house at midnight? Seeming restless and unable to settle? You might think that's just cats being cats. But actually, it's a direct consequence of insufficient play. Cats are crepuscular, meaning they're naturally most active at dawn and dusk. But they adapt their schedules to match their human households, especially when they're getting their energy needs met during the day. Play sessions help regulate this. A good evening play session, especially one that ends with feeding, mimics the natural hunt-eat-sleep cycle and tells your cat's body, it's time to wind down. But skip play for a week? Your cat's circadian rhythm starts drifting. They're still generating all that predatory energy we talked about earlier, but now they're not burning it when you're awake. So when do they burn it? When you're asleep. Research on feline activity patterns shows that cats deprived of daytime stimulation shift their most active periods to nighttime, reverting to their natural nocturnal hunting patterns. And once that shift happens, it's hard to reverse. You've essentially trained your cat, accidentally, that nighttime is playtime. And the sleep disruption goes both ways. Not only is your cat more active at night, they're also sleeping more poorly. Remember, play helps complete that neurological cycle. Without it, your cat's nervous system stays in a low-level arousal state. They might sleep more hours, but the quality of that sleep decreases. A study in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery found that understimulated cats spend more time in light sleep and less in deep, restorative REM sleep. And poor sleep in cats, just like in humans, affects everything: immune function, emotional regulation, even pain perception. The fix? Re-establish the routine. Play session before your bedtime, followed by feeding. Within 3 to 4 days of consistency, most cats will reset their sleep-wake cycle. But let it drift for a week, and you might be fighting nighttime craziness for a month. If you're starting to realize that just a week isn't really just a week, that's exactly why Whisker Wisdom exists. Subscribe so you understand what's really happening behind your cat's behavior, not just what it looks like on the surface. And stay with me, because the next 3 consequences cut deeper into behavior, bond, and mental health. Be honest. Has your cat started scratching furniture they normally leave alone? Knocking things off counters more than usual? Shredding paper or attacking houseplants? And have you been wondering, why are they suddenly being bad? Here's what's really happening. They're not being bad. They're being desperately understimulated. And all that energy that should be going into play is finding other outlets. Outlets you really don't want. Cats need to express natural behaviors: scratching, pouncing, biting, kicking. These aren't optional personality traits. They're hardwired behavioral needs. When you provide appropriate play, these behaviors get channeled into toys and climbing structures. When you don't, they get channeled into your couch, your curtains, and your sanity. A study on feline problem behaviors found that over 60% of destructive behaviors in indoor cats are directly linked to insufficient physical and mental stimulation. Not aggression. Not dominance. Not spite. Just boredom and frustration seeking any available outlet. And here's what makes this particularly insidious. These behaviors can become self-reinforcing habits incredibly quickly. Your cat scratches the couch corner once because they're frustrated. It feels good. They do it again. By day 4 or 5 of no play, it's becoming a pattern. By day 7, it's a habit. And habits are much harder to break than preventing them in the first place. The same applies to countersurfing, aggressive play toward other pets, and even litter box avoidance. Stress and understimulation create behavioral chaos, and 1 week is plenty of time for new, unwanted patterns to take root. The solution? Redirect before it becomes habit. If you've already skipped several days, restart play immediately and provide alternative outlets for all that energy. Puzzle feeders. New scratching posts. Rotating toys. But the best fix is never letting it lapse in the first place. Here's the one that breaks my heart, and it's the one almost nobody connects to skipped playtime. After a week of no play, have you noticed your cat seems a little more distant? Less likely to seek you out? More independent in a way that feels cold? You might think they're just maturing or becoming more aloof. But actually, you're watching the bond weaken in real time. Here's what most people don't understand about the cat-human relationship. Unlike dogs, cats don't bond with us just because we exist or provide food. They bond through shared positive experiences. And for cats, play is one of the highest value bonding activities there is. Research on cat-human attachment published in Current Biology found that interactive play sessions significantly strengthen the attachment bond between cats and their owners. But here's the critical finding: the bond isn't static. It requires maintenance. When positive interactions decrease, the attachment security decreases with it. Think about it from your cat's perspective. Every day, you've been the source of one of their most satisfying experiences, the hunt. You made the prey move. You gave them the thrill of the chase and the satisfaction of the catch. You were their favorite part of the day. And then, suddenly, you just stopped. Your cat doesn't understand deadlines or busy schedules. What they understand is that the reliable source of joy and stimulation has disappeared. And over the course of a week, they start to adjust. They seek you out less. They bond more with solo activities. They become more self-sufficient, not because they want to, but because they're adapting to your unavailability. And here's the devastating part: some cats interpret this as rejection. You stopped playing with them, so they assume you're no longer interested. And cats, being proud creatures, will often pull back emotionally to protect themselves from continued disappointment. 1 week might not destroy your bond entirely, but it creates distance. And if it becomes a pattern, busy weeks stacking into months, you wake up one day with a cat who tolerates you but doesn't really connect with you anymore. And at that point, rebuilding takes significantly more effort than maintaining ever did. The fix is protection. Treat daily play like you treat daily feeding. Non-negotiable. Even 5 minutes. Because you're not just exercising your cat. You're telling them they matter to you. And cats need to hear that just like any other being. Here it is. The deepest consequence. The one that happens silently and changes your cat from the inside out. And it's the one that makes just 1 week such a dangerous phrase, because by the time you see the symptoms, the damage is already spreading. When cats go without adequate play, especially when it becomes a pattern, they don't just get bored. They develop what veterinary behaviorists call chronic understimulation syndrome, a form of psychological distress that manifests as depression, anxiety, or learned helplessness. Here's how it progresses. Days 1 to 2, frustration. Your cat still has energy and seeks outlets. Days 3 to 5, agitation. The energy is building with nowhere to go. Days 6 to 7, shutdown. Your cat stops trying. They sleep more, but it's not peaceful rest. It's withdrawal. A study on environmental enrichment and feline welfare found that cats deprived of adequate stimulation show measurable changes in brain chemistry, specifically decreased serotonin and dopamine production. These are the same neurotransmitters that regulate mood in humans. When they drop, depression follows. And here's what that looks like: your cat stops greeting you at the door. They don't come when called. They spend hours staring at nothing. They groom excessively or not at all. They lose interest in food. You might think they're sick, and you take them to the vet, but blood work comes back normal. Because the illness isn't physical. It's psychological. And the most heartbreaking part: many owners never make the connection. They think their cat is just getting older or naturally becoming less playful. But what's really happening is learned helplessness. Your cat tried to engage, got no response, and eventually stopped trying. They've learned that their needs don't get met, so they stop expressing them. This can happen in just 1 week if your cat is already vulnerable: young cats with high energy needs, cats already prone to anxiety, or cats who previously had consistent play routines that suddenly stopped. The reversal isn't impossible, but it's not instant either. You can't just play once and fix it. You have to rebuild the neural pathways, re-establish the routine, and prove to your cat that the enrichment is back for good. That takes consistency over weeks, sometimes months. But here's the truth that puts all of this in perspective. You have complete control over this. Every single consequence we've talked about, the frustrated predatory drive, the physical decline, the sleep disruption, the destructive behaviors, the fractured bond, the mental health spiral, all of it is preventable with 10 to 15 minutes a day. That's not a huge ask. That's one episode of TV. One scroll session. One snooze alarm. And in exchange, you get a cat who's physically healthy, emotionally stable, behaviorally balanced, and deeply bonded to you. A cat who's living the life their brain and body were designed for. The goal was never perfection. It was showing up. Consistently. Because your cat doesn't need you to be available all day. They need you to be reliably present in the moments that matter to their well-being. And play is one of those moments. At Whisker Wisdom, we dig into the real science of what cats need, not just what's convenient for us to provide. If this changed how you think about playtime, share it with a cat owner who thinks skipping a week doesn't matter. Your cat's mental and physical health depends on what you do today, not what you promise to do tomorrow. 10 minutes. That's all it takes to prevent everything we just talked about. Make it count.